Say a quick prayer. Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King. Modeinu Anachnu ki natat lanu et kol asher anachnu tzorechim lilmud et divrecha et lashon hakodesh shelcha b'marim. We're so grateful, Lord, that you've given us everything that we need in order to study your holy words, in order to learn the sacred language. May it be your will, God of our fathers, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that you will bless my students, that you will give them supernatural memory, that you'll give them the fire inside, the emotional juice they need to push forward and to finish the race, that they might every day be closer and closer to you and hearing your voice and also seeing the beauty that is in the holy tongue, the language of the prophets. Okay, so let's go. So here we are with Aliya Yomi, picking it up to finish the first Aliya. We are on Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 17. So let me go ahead. I need to stop a program I have running. Sorry, I don't want it to interfere with us. Telegram browser. That should do it. Okay, so would anybody like to volunteer to read from the Breshit level students, verse 17? It's a bit long, but interesting. Who would like to read? Okay, so then maybe I'll let Shemot students and even advanced chime in. So whoever wants to read, go ahead, volunteer. There are no restrictions. You guys hear me, right? You hear me? Who wants to read? Are you here? What's happening? All right, maybe I'll just start the reading. I hope that everyone is... Oh, it just occurred to me. Hold on. Maybe there's something I left off. Let's see. I did it again. I had my microphone unmuted, but I had unmuted the app. I forgot the app defaults to mute. Whew, Baruch Hashem. I almost just took off reading there, but I was thinking, surely they would respond. I was keep asking, would someone like to read? Let me just make sure that we have the chat box up so I can see whatever people write. They've changed the GoToMeeting app, and there's a little bit of a strangeness to it that's throwing me off. All right, so would someone from the Breshit level like to take a stab at it first to read verse 17 here? We're continuing our Aliya Yomi where we left off. We are, so this is still the first Aliya, it's quite a long one. We're in Deuteronomy chapter 21, but verse 17. And I haven't finished posting all the other parts yet. Tonight I'll probably post part Dalet, and then in the morning, Hey, and then whatever we do tonight will be caught up, okay? So who would like to read this, verse 17? Yeah, go for it.
Rabbi, there's nothing's on the screen.
Oh, really? You're not seeing my screen? Thank you. Okay. All right, let's see. Yeah, the GoToMeeting software, they changed some stuff, and so it's throwing off my... All right, let's see. Screen familiar 2. Thank you for that. How about now? Do you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, great. That's what was happening in the GoToMeeting app. I had not shared the screen, and so the app was behaving strangely, the way I would have to move the thing around. Okay. All right, let's try this again. Would someone, preferably from Breshit level, like to take a stab at reading this verse that's up here? This is Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 17. Who's brave? Who wants to read from Breshit level? All right, I'm going to open it up to Shemot level students. Who wants to read from the Shemot classes? Jump on in. Okay, now I'm opening it up to everybody, including advanced students. Who wants to read? Somebody read verse 17. If not, I will.
Ki-et havekor ben Hashenua Yakir Latet Lo Pi Shenayim Benol
Look again.
Asher.
Look at it again, one more time. I know you can read this. I think you just missed off.
Bechol,
Good.
sorry. Bechol Asher Yimatze Lo Kihu Reshit Ono Lo Mishpat Havekora.
Good. Thank you. Thank you for that. Great. Good reading. So let's see. Now let's just translate this together. Everybody, it's fair game. We can all comment on it. Okay. I just would ask, the more advanced, you just sit back for a sec to give the others a chance. But so far, so good. Okay. So let's see. So ki. What's ki mean?
If or when.
Sure. So ki, as we mentioned last time, that can be if, when. Okay. All right. So if or when, et habechor. So now we have the object of the verb, right? It's coming first. What does that mean when the object of the verb comes first? First, we know because of et. What does that tell you guys?
It's predicative.
Well, it's giving us a hint. The usual order in Hebrew is what? Usually we have verb plus, and then you'll have
verb,
object
noun.
or subject, right? Object or subject. They can sneak in there, object or subject, right? In this case, object is first. You see the et? We don't have the subject, the verb yet. The verb is way over here. There's the verb. So when we put the object first, usually the Hebrew syntax tells us there's special emphasis, right? So there's some kind of emphasis going on with this bechor. Okay? So what does bechor mean? Who knows what bechor means? Bechor. Seems I've only got Jen with me tonight. What's bechor mean? Who remembers the meaning of bechor? It's not one of your vocab words, but we had it in the Aliya. So the bechor is the firstborn son. Firstborn, the heir, right? Firstborn son. If it were the firstborn daughter we're talking about, that would be habechora. Habechora. So habechora is firstborn daughter, habechor is firstborn son, and habechora has another meaning also in context. It also means the birthright, right? So we're not, if you see the habechora, I don't think it's necessarily the firstborn daughter. It might be the birthright we're talking about. They happen to be the same word. Okay. All right. So ki et habechor ben hasanua. So if, so when instead. Yeah, okay. I'm actually going to interpret this a bit differently. Ki in the Psalms can be what we call emphatic ki. We learned from the Psalms, emphatic ki. So this might be something like, certainly, ben hasanua. So certainly Yakir. So Yakir, you guys remember Yakir? Recognize. So certainly, he shall recognize the firstborn, et habechor. We have to have emphasis there. Ben hasanua, the son of the lesser loved wife. Latet. Who recognizes latet? What is latet? What's the verb? What verb is this?
Natan.
Very good, Naomi.
Forgive.
Natan. Natan, right? So this is the infinitive construct form, and we put the lamed on the front, and that's exactly like we look up verbs in English. To run, to give, to do whatever, right? That's what this means. It's Natan, and it's just very hard to recognize. It's good you recognized it, because it's a pei nun verb. The nun disappears. And the nun at the end also can be tricky and can disappear a lot. So we pretty much just have this infinitive form you have to recognize that latet means to give. Okay, to give. Lo, what's lo?
Not or
Now you're
no.
right if that was spelled with an aleph. That's right. If it was lo like this, that means not, right? But this is lo with a chulin, right? It's got a suffix on it. What's that suffix tell us?
To him.
Yeah, that's right. To him. Him. Okay. So, all right. So, instead might be one way we translate the key here, or certainly he shall give. And now here's our emphasis: the firstborn, the son of the one less loved. Pardon me. He shall recognize to give to him. Pi shemayim b'chol asher yimatzeh lo. Okay, P. What's P mean? Do you guys know what P means? It's a bit harder to recognize. You probably don't know this word. So P, it's related to mouth, right? But it means portion, a portion. Portion. And in fact, this term, Pi shenayim, this is an idiom. This means a double portion. Literally portion shenayim, two, right? Like two portions. Portion two, a double portion. Now, there's some kind of, there's a little bit of dispute about this among the sages, about what this meaning actually says. So some say it means 2/3, right? So the idea is that if there's two sons, the firstborn gets a double portion. So that means you have to make 3 portions, because you don't want to do like the Europeans used to do. In Europe, basically, the firstborn son got everything. He's the heir. And everybody else got nothing, including the wife, right? Just nothing. And they had to hope that the firstborn son had been raised properly and he'd share. But in the Bible, this is not the way it is. In the Bible, all of the heirs receive something, okay? It's just that the firstborn gets double what they get. So the dispute is like this. So some sages say that it means 2/3. And, so basically, if you have 2 sons, you have to cut up into 3 shares, and he gets 2. If you have 5 sons, this is where it gets tricky. Some would say that it's actually 2/3, so he's still getting 2/3, and everybody else is dividing the remaining third. So many of the sages, they say, no, it's only 2/3 in the case of 2 sons. So it just means double. So you add 1 portion to however many sons there are. If there are 5 sons, you make it 6 portions, and he gets 2. And the rest gets divided among everybody else. And I won't spend a whole lot of time on this, but it's a bit of a controversy. They reference in Zechariah to see how it's used there and other places. And what is interesting is that we do find in ancient Near Eastern literature, the liberal Jewish Israeli scholar Finkelstein, he translates from these Akkadian texts the word shitin. He translates it as double share. So he always treats it as double share. But we do find that in the Neo-Babylonian laws that the sons of a first man's wife inherit 2/3 of his estate, and the sons of the second wife inherit 1/3. So they get more complicated. So basically, however many sons the first wife had, all of them, by virtue of being first wife, even if the second wife had a son first, right? So in Babylon, the sons of the first wife had a higher level than the sons of the second wife. So Scripture, of course, we see is combating this and saying, no, it doesn't matter which wife she is. The firstborn son is the one who gets the 2/3. And this is actually something that's important because in the Goyisha congregations, I've heard, have you ever heard this talk at Spirit-filled congregations sometimes? You've surely heard these kind of sermons. Like Elisha wanted a double portion of the Spirit that was on Eliyahu HaNavi, Elijah the prophet. You guys have heard this, right? And so there's kind of there's a mistake that's made among many Spirit-filled congregations where the preacher will talk about, may you have a double portion of what I've been given. And they, of course, want a double portion from their teacher, right, their pastor. And it can go on and on and on. And, of course, mathematically, it ends up being absurd. Right? You can't keep doubling and doubling and doubling. I mean, my goodness, if that's the case, everyone today with the Spirit would be raising the dead all the time, right? What it really means is that we had a school of the prophets in biblical times. So there were schools, and sometimes less formal, that people would just study at the feet of the prophet, right? They would learn how to prophesy. They would learn how to listen for the Spirit. They would learn for these things. And so what it means in the case of Elisha getting a double portion, he's referring to compared to all the other students. Right? So maybe there's 100 portions of students that Eliyahu and Hanavi has, and Elisha wants 2% of what's going to get inherited. See? And it's interesting. When you have amazing prophets, there actually is this context, this concept in the Torah of there kind of being like this finite amount of God's Spirit that he's going to give at a certain period of time, right? So, for example, like with Moshe, you remember with Moshe Rabbeinu, there's a period of time where God says, I will take some of the Spirit I have apportioned to you, and I will give it to the elders, the 70 elders, right? And so then they prophesy, right? So he's actually taking some of what he's given Moses, and he gives it to other people, which is very interesting. I think this actually is very useful to remember this when we interpret any kind of prophecy that's talking about distribution of the Spirit. And so really it makes it much more interesting in the Messianic era when the Spirit of God will be on all flesh, right? So there's no more rationing of his Spirit. He's just letting it go everywhere. In the days when all of Jerusalem will be holy, right? So every pot and every pan will be holy, we're told, right? Not just in the temple, but everywhere. So, and that the light will be actually shining from Hashem himself. All right, so let's continue here. So that's nice. So a double portion. Bechol. What's bechol mean? Bechol. Somebody bechol. Okay, somebody tells me
In all.
that the file's not showing. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Do you not see the screen? If you guys are not seeing my screen, then please make sure that you click on Follow Presenter in the app. It has to be on Follow Presenter to see my screen. So, in all, very good. Somebody said, right? In all. So we have the inseparable preposition bait. In chol, in all. Okay. In all. All right. Asher, what's asher mean?
That.
Okay, good. That
Is
or
it
which, right? That. It's the relative pronoun, right? That. Or which. Okay. Yimatsei. Notice the dagesh here. So who knows what matzah means? The verb matzah. I'm writing it down below on the screen. Nice. Thank you, Yomar. Yomar has put up some examples from what I was talking about. For Elisha, check 2 Kings chapter 2, verse 9. For the P. Shemayim. And for Moshe, about the portion being distributed, check Numbers 11, verse 17. Thanks for that. So matzah, in the Kal Binyan, who remembers what that means? Kal. I mean the matzah.
Rabbi,
Anybody? Any student? Reshit or Shemot?
Rabbi, I'm not heard.
It means find. We do learn from Ugaritic that it can also mean to overtake, like to catch up with someone, right, or to overtake them militarily. But to find, right? Matzah. So, can you guys recognize the binyan that we have up here? What binyan is this? You notice there's a strong dagesh in the first letter, the first root letter. What does that tell you?
If all.
Oh, Vika is muted. You can unmute. You can just click unmute. What happens is sometimes there's background noise, and then I just click mute all. And I click mute all, and it makes it so everybody's muted, but then you can unmute your own when you want to talk. Yeah? And nobody is permanently muted. Nifal. Okay, Vikoi writes correctly. Nifal. Very good. Okay. So what had happened is the preformative noon from Nifal, in ancient Hebrew, we would have had this form yin matzeh, and then yin matzeh, over time, by the time we get to Torah Hebrew, the noon has assimilated into the mem, and it just doubles it. You guys all remember the illegal example that I like to use to show how this happens in English? So with the English noon, which is an N, so let's just look at English. We have this word. We have the word illegal, okay? And the way this was formed was that in Old English, they took the Latin word in from Latin, which means not. Okay? And then they added that to the word legal. Okay? So in Old English, the word for illegal was illegal. But over time, for some reason, people don't like to say N sounds, noon or N, close to another consonant. So what happens is, what in linguistics is called this concept of assimilation. Assimilation. So assimilation means the N means one consonant sound. He copies the sound of another consonant. Okay? So what happened was this, over time, became illegal. You see the N sound? It copied the sound of the letter that was next to it, right? Illegal with two L's, right? So if we use dageshim in English, we could actually write this very interestingly. If we use the Hebrew strong dagesh, we could write this word as, let me continue over here. I'm running out of real estate. We could write it as I, L. You'll excuse my use of capitals in weird places. Okay. And then let me get green for our strong dagesh. We put that strong dagesh in the L, right? That tells you there's two L's there, right? So if we use the dagesh system of not repeating, in English, we would say illegal, right? And that strong dagesh, that would tell you there once was an N that made the L double, right? So that's the exact same thing that's happening with our example in Hebrew up above, with Ki-teytsei. So the root is matzah. And that root has assimilated, actually the noon has assimilated, and he's copied that mem letter, the mem sound, and made it double. It doesn't have to be mem. We can have other words that start with a different consonant, and this will still happen, right? So yin-matzei, just like illegal became illegal, yin-matzei became yi-matzei over time. And you don't have to remember this, but sometimes the history of the thing helps people to remember the grammar rule, right? Because you understand really what happened phonetically. Okay, let's continue on. So, in all which yi-matzei, so it's nifal, so that means which is found, which shall be found, right? Nifal, you remember the nifal binyan usually expresses a passive, not always, but usually a passive concept. So if matzah in the kal means find, then in the nifal it means be found. So this is perfect or imperfect, guys. Yi-matzei, is that perfect or imperfect form? Perfect or imperfect? Waiting for an answer. Yi-matzei, perfect or imperfect?
Imperfect.
Thank you, imperfect, very good. Imperfect. And by the way, some of you might have noticed how, if you look at a Hebrew scroll, or if you look at a modern Hebrew newspaper, how the vowels are not written, right? But we do this in English too, right? When we take notes sometimes. Like here I wrote imperfect, and notice I dropped most of the vowels. I left the initial I on, assume that was an aleph. So it's normal, it's normal. This is, again, not a weird thing that Hebrew alone does. Many languages do this. People do it in shorthand, right? They'll just drop the vowels because it's clear what we mean. Okay, so shall be found, because imperfect usually is future, right? Lo, what's lo mean?
To him.
To him, right? So like belonging to him. So among everything which shall be found belonging to him. So he's died, and they're kind of cataloging the estate, right? They're going through and seeing what he has, right? A double portion from all, and this is actually an interesting thing. Let me just make this note here. You do not have to remember this, but we find this out in advanced Hebrew, that beit can mean from. Again, this is an Ugaritic discovery, which has had great bearing on how to interpret the Psalms, especially. It can mean from. So actually, I think this. So you could either interpret here among all or from all, which shall be found belonging to him. That's the lo, belonging to him. Ki hu reshit ono lo mishpat habechorah. Ki, what's ki? For. Good. For or because. Because who? What's who? He, this is referring back to the Bechor, the firstborn. This guy here, let me highlight it so we can see that more easily visually. Oh, it's this guy over here, you see? Bechor. It refers all the way back. Let's do it. Can you see that? It's hard to see. I need to change my color. Perhaps that's red. Goes all the way back to this guy. For he, meaning the Bechor, the firstborn, is the Reshit. What's Reshit mean?
Beginning.
Okay, that's one meaning. It could mean beginning. That's what it means in Genesis, isn't it?
Head.
Beginning.
Head.
Louder, sister.
Head.
Head,
Rabbi,
okay. Yeah, head. Although usually we say Rosh, it's from the same root as head. Let's say first. You mean first, right? First. This actually has other meanings too, right? Who remembers what else it can mean? Reshit. It can mean processed first fruits. So like jams and stuff, right? First. Something you make from your first fruits. So when they would bring the first fruits up to the temple, if they lived too far away and they were afraid the vegetables or the fruits or something would spoil, then they would process it into something already, right? So the wheat they might not bring bundled up; they might make it into flour already, right? Or semolina, right? Sulit, like a fine flour, or the dates they might make into devash, which is date honey, oftentimes rendered just honey, right? Date syrup, something like that. That's reshit, and it can also mean the choicest. Right? So you give Adonai, we're told you give him your reshit techa, your choicest, right? That which is the best that we have, right? We don't give him the animals with mum, with blemish, we give him the best. So reshit, ono. Now ono, this is a bit difficult. Who knows what ono is? Ono. Ono. Even if you don't know the word,
Rabbi,
can you
is it related to the word, to the name Onan, right?
Yes. His name is related.
Okay.
Do you know what the meaning is? Ono. This is kind of hard. Okay, before we give the meaning, let's decide. Let's see if we can figure it out in context. Okay, so does it have any additions, any prefixes or suffixes, anything like that? This word.
Suffix.
Yeah, that's right.
Him.
Very good.
Him or.
Right. Usually when it's on a noun, it's going to be his, right? His, the genitive, right? It'll become him if it's at the end of a verb, right? Like he forsook him, right? Azavo, right? It could be or azaviv, either one of those, right? He forsook him. It can go on the end of a verb. But if it's on the end of a noun, usually it's his, right? So his something, okay? So the first or the choicest of his something. So this word on, it's kind of like his power, right? His vigor, there it is. That's vigor. The first of his vigor, right? So vigor. His generative strength, something like this. So the ancients understood that your first child, that the man, whatever he gave, the seed that he gave, somehow it was like more energized with his spirit and it would decrease over time, right? So like if he's, of course we find this is not the case with Abraham, right? With Yitzchak, we have the miraculous birth, but that's a miracle. Okay, lo, what is lo? His, right? Or belonging to him. Right? Okay, so again, the firstborn. Mishpat habechorah. Okay, so now we have, what's the relationship between these two words? You guys see? Mishpat habechorah? It's raining outside.
Construct.
Yeah, beautiful.
Construct.
Well done. Construct relationship. And just so you know, you see this little, this accent mark, he's hinting about that, but that's not enough to know. The meracha, in this case, together with the siluk, it's telling us it's construct, but that's advanced. Okay, mishpat, what's mishpat? Judgment, nice. Yep. In this case, judgment, I think, is the best choice. It can also mean justice, right? but that's not what's going to be here. So judgment, this is judgment of, what's habechora?
A birthright.
Very good. The birthright. See, so we have definite article, ha, and bechora means birthright. So birth. Right. By the way, if any of you know Jewish kids in America, I missed out on this when I was younger because I didn't know it existed. But if you are younger than 26 years old, I think 21 to 26, you can get, if you're Jewish, you can get a free trip to Israel. It's called the Birthright Tour by Joshua something Enterprise or whatever. So they will pay for your hotel, they'll pay for your plane tickets for Jewish Americans. They might do it for Brits too, I'm not sure. I don't know about Canada, but in the States. But you have to be under the age of 26. So if you know anybody, maybe let them know. Maybe they don't know. This is a nice way, especially if you know like a secular Jewish person. Maybe they're from a Reform family. They're not very religious. And you want to kind of expose them to Torah. You want to get them back to their roots, back to Hashem. Nothing like a trip to the Holy Land can help. And hey, why not? It's free, right? So they can go for free. It's called the Birthright Tour. So anyway, so Habechora. Mishpat habechora. So here we have the last word is definite, right? So it is going to distribute
Yes.
its definiteness to the whole thing, right? So how do you translate that whole phrase now?
The judgment of the birthright.
Yeah, there you go. This is the judgment of the birthright, right? We probably have to say this to make it sound good in English, right? Otherwise it's too caveman-y, right? Judgment of the birthright. So basically we have this, verse 17, it's saying, now he shall recognize the firstborn, let me change the laser pointer, the son of the lesser loved wife, to give to him a double portion, or 2/3, depending on which rabbis you go with, a double portion from all, or among all which shall be found belonging to him. For he is the first of his vigor, the choicest of his vigor, or the beginning of his vigor, which is his. This is the judgment of the birthright. Okay? You could even say the case of the birthright. Okay, so Vikoy asks, how about firstborn grafted in? Yeah, I wish they recognized that, guys. Yeah, perhaps in the future we can have some Messianic ventures, or Bnei Yisrael ventures, as I prefer the title, and maybe we'll have some very wealthy individuals who can sponsor that for our firstborns as well. But as the case is right now, grafted in are not counted by the by that particular organization. It's a traditional Jewish organization, yeah. So sorry, but I hope in the future, when we are millionaires with counting dollars, then we'll be able to start some foundation like this to bring firstborn of grafted in as well. That'd be really wonderful. You know, it's one of my visions to establish a kibbutz for the native and the grafted in as well in Judea. There's I'm running out of time to get help from the government on it. I think I maybe have a year and a half left. There's a time frame, right, where where Olim immigrants can actually get an interest-free loan from the government. I think it's 250,000 shekels, and land is pretty cheap in Judea. So I kind of have this idea to make like a Messianic kibbutz there, right? So people could come, they could stay there, like in Bedouin-style tents or something, so they don't have to spend a lot on hotels. And then they could go around the Holy Land, and we could have immersion Hebrew learning there, right? And, so something like that, I think that'd be really neat. A place for, and then maybe an extension of that would be those who wanted to sponsor grafted in firstborns to go, right? Or actually, it's not only firstborn. You have to be the firstborn for the Birthright Tour. It's considered your birthright is the land is the birthright, right? You don't have to be firstborn. You can be lastborn. It still applies. Here, Yomar has shared Genesis chapter 49, verse 3. The first of my vigor, Reshit Oni. Very nice. And notice the difference in spelling there. That's Aleph, Vav Nun, and here we have defective spelling. We have just the Cholim without the Cholim Vav. And that happens, those spelling differences. Okay? All right, let's continue on.